4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Grüß Gott. Das ist ein greeting von Bavaria. That's how the Bavarians greet everyone. Greetings of God. I think something like that. Heute ist der 12. Juli 1987. Today is the 12th of July, 1987. I think that's correct anyhow. Is that correct, Nancy? Anyhow, begates from the keels of Deutschland to the keels of Pennsylvania. I think this the batteries in the recorder may hold up long enough that I might get a tape put together here. It seems as though there's a scarcity of AA batteries in the PX, and fortunately I had one pack of 4 that I carry with me, but this particular recorder requires 6, so the new ones I had combined with a couple of workable batteries, I think I was able to, at least the tape is running right now. I'm afraid to try the tape with the electrical power because it may screw up in terms of speed. I'm not that familiar with, even though we've done this before in England, I forget how to make certain that the speed is correct when we're using 240 volts versus 110 volts, etc. So I wanted to use the batteries. So anyhow, we're anxious to get a tape off, and I thought the best way to just fill you in with what's been going on is to start at the very beginning, as they say, and give a chronological accounting of what's been going on since we last saw you. Of course, we last saw you on the 28th of June in Ocean City, Maryland. It was a very sad occasion. We first traveled back to the Baltimore area, and we stayed for 2 nights in the guest quarters hotel near the airport, and visited fleetingly with Nancy's family once again. On Monday evening of that, I guess that would have been the 29th, Peg wanted to host a little bit of a farewell party, and so Peg and Cheryl and their mother co-hosted, I guess, this little party, and Dick and Virginia were able to come over, and Dick's son Ricky, who's now the father of 22-month-old twins, and his wife Ellen, and David's parents, Barbara and Bill Dallin, and of course Cheryl's friend Judy, and all the rest of us. And I think that was essentially the grouping, and so we had a little bit of a send-off party that evening, and then of course got our stuff together for the departure the next day. On departure day, it was rather hectic as expected, I guess, and we still had a couple of packages to mail off, which we got off with Cheryl's assistance, and Robin and Cheryl ran down to the post office while doing that, and while I ran over to the airport on the first of 3 trips to take some luggage, because I thought it would be easier that way than to try to take it all at one time. So anyhow, getting into some details there, which are probably unnecessary. We did leave on schedule at 3 o'clock from BWI, or 3:05 to be precise, and flew via a Piedmont connection with TWA to JFK Airport in New York. JFK Airport in New York is an experience to be forgotten. It is one of the world's worst experiences I can think of in transiting through that airport. It wasn't all that personally terrible in terms of baggage, because the only thing we really had to pick up in terms of baggage was biscuit. There was some disagreement by the TWA agents as to whether we could actually check biscuit all the way through from Baltimore to Munich, or whether we had to claim her at JFK and then re-ticket her from JFK to Munich. In any event, it didn't really matter because we welcomed the opportunity to be able to check on biscuit after the first, albeit a very short flight from Baltimore, to make sure she was all right. So we did that, and we re-ticketed her, and that's all we had to do in terms of baggage. But the problem was the JFK airport, in terms of number of people compared with BWI, is just unbelievably bad. Just throngs and throngs and throngs of people. And the air traffic, I guess, is quite horrendous too, because what happened was there were a lot of incoming flights, evidently, that were delayed by storms in different areas of the country, and that caused a little bit of a traffic jam on incoming flights. That had a domino effect on the outbound flights, because the aircraft still had to be serviced in between the inbound and the outbound flights. So what they ended up doing was, and evidently this is quite common, we found out at JFK. Our experience was not really an unusual one. But what they ended up doing was prioritizing the flights, and instead of leaving at 6:30, we arrived about 4 o'clock. But instead of leaving at 6:30 as scheduled, we didn't actually take off until about 9 o'clock. So it was a delay while we waited in the terminal, very frustrating. And then also, even after we were able to board the aircraft, we had a fairly long delay of 45 minutes to an hour just sitting on the ground. But the flight itself turned out to be rather uneventful. It was very tiring, of course. The pilot was able to make up some time, I guess, when they ran into those situations. And I forget now the time that we landed in Brussels the next morning. I think we were originally, let's see if I can recapture some of this from my notes. I think we were originally scheduled to arrive in Brussels. Sorry. I never did have the time of arrival in Brussels. We were scheduled to arrive in Munich at 10 o'clock on the 1st of July. But as it turns out, so I don't know what time we landed in Brussels, but in any event, we landed in Munich at 11:45 instead of 10 o'clock. So he did make up some of the time, obviously, but we were still fairly late getting into Munich. But we were met by the chief of station and our Mr. Griffin and our sponsor, Mr. Smetak, and I am the chap that I'm replacing, Mr. Black. So it was quite a nice reception, the three of them at the airport. As I say, we did have a nice reception there, but it was just a matter of the three of them there for the greeting, but really our sponsor was there to take care of us. And they had a station vehicle, which is a van, which we were able to put all the luggage and all of us in, and get over to our new temporary quarters, which we're sitting in right now, which in fact is a 4-bedroom apartment used for transient quarters. And it's really quite comfortable, actually. Even if all of us were here, we actually couldn't sleep. I'm going to have to pause here for a moment while I sort somebody out. Just a second. Okay, here I am back again. I had to do a little sorting out of Brian and his friend that's visiting. His name is Robert. What's your last name, Robert? Is it Johnson? Robert Johnson. And Robert's 7 years old? Okay. Do you guys want to say hello?
No.
Well, I think they've already heard you from over there. So anyhow, I forget where I was, but I think I was talking about our arrival in Munich in our apartment, which is actually, as I say, it's quite nice and can sleep more than the four of us, because in the one room, which is Robin had for a couple of nights before she left for England, there are 2 single beds. In the room that Becca's been using, there are 2 single beds. In the room that Brian's been using, there are 2 bunk beds. And of course, well, it's 1 bunk bed, but there are 2 beds there, top and bottom. And then Nance and I, of course, have a double bed. So we actually theoretically can sleep 8 here. So if you are so inclined to hop on the airplane right now, we have room for at least 3 in regular beds, and we have a nice sofa in the living room here. In fact, there's a 3-seat sofa and a 2-seat sofa. So we can really sleep quite a few people here. So why don't you consider that and hop on a plane and come on over. The bad news is that our entertainment in terms of by way of the media is somewhat limited because we have 1 TV station, Armed Forces Network. It's actually AFRTS, I think, Armed Forces Radio and Television Service. There's 1 TV channel in English. Of course, we can watch some programs in German. But one TV channel in English, and then, of course, we have 1 radio station in English. And yet that is not at all bad. We've been quite busy with, even with that so-called limitation. Actually, it probably is not so much of a limitation, but an advantage. So, the apartment really is quite nice. It's on the 2nd floor. It's nice and breezy, and the weather has been quite warm since we've been here. They say that spring is the worst spring they've had in over 103 years. But just right before we arrived, the weather really got quite nice, and it's been warm, 80s, actually too warm in a couple days, and that's very unusual, evidently, for Bavaria. So since we've been here,
Tell them about my card castles.
well, why don't you come here and tell them about it? Come on here and tell them. Brian wants to tell you about his card castles. And tell them where you got those cards and what kind of cards they are.
Well, I got the cards at a restaurant, but they're not really cards. They're coasters, and
The beer coasters?
they're beer coasters, and
One of the girls at the restaurant showed you how to do that?
one of the girls at a restaurant on a morning tour we went to showed me how to do it. And do you know the regular big castle? Well, I added 2, one going straight across and one going up and down under the left end of the one that was going across on both sides of the ones on the 2nd row.
Tell them what you think of Germany.
And I don't like Germany too much.
You don't? You slipped up the other day and said you did.
Me either.
Don't you, Robert? Robert says he doesn't like it either. Okay. That was Brian's input for the moment. So let's see now. After we got here, of course, there's still all the emotion of saying goodbye was still with us, and that was a very difficult period. And it still is, but it was particularly difficult with Robin, and she was very upset. But our sponsors were been very good. They provided, they really went overboard, and they provided groceries. They had the refrigerator stocked, and plenty for us here to eat, and some good German beer to drink, and so forth and so on. And they had us lined up for orientation programs of various sorts. So that was really helped quite a bit, the efforts that they made and have been making and are continuing to make, I guess, really, because they're still doing things for us now into our, I guess, really our 12th, 13th day, almost 2 weeks.
They're too big to fit in this box.
They happen to be having a fest here on the grounds of the community that ran through the 5th of July. And so we were able to go over to that one evening, and there were a lot of rides. The kids went on. Well, Brian ran one, I guess, and then a couple of, I guess all of us really went through the haunted house that you ride through. Just a second. Okay, here I am again. It's a little bit later in the evening now. In fact, it's about a little after 7 o'clock in the evening. We're on Sunday, the 12th of July still. And I was talking about the fest that we went to. Well, in addition to the rides, there was plenty to drink and a bit to eat. So we had asked for a mass of beer, which is basically a liter of beer. Well, between Nancy and I together, we couldn't quite polish that off. So we're going to have to really work on our drinking skills here. But anyhow, all joking aside, the beer is really quite good. And do like it, but do keep it to moderation. So anyhow, we enjoyed the fest for what it was, I guess. That was one of the first evenings. Well, that we were here. Let's see. So we arrived on Wednesday the 1st. Well, Robin was anxious to get going for England as soon as possible, so shortly after we arrived, we found out how to book airline reservations on the base here. And so we were able to book her for a flight to Manchester on Saturday, which was the 4th of July. So on the 4th of July, after having, I went into work on Thursday the 3rd, or 2nd, and rested up on the day that we arrived. It was kind of late anyhow. It was afternoon by the time we got here into the apartment, and so we rested the rest of that day. And then Thursday I went into work and met a lot of the people there and saw the place where I'm going to be working, and did a few things like that and a few more processing things. Signed up for housing and all those good things. And then on Friday we had the day off as a holiday, and so we managed to catch up on some of our sleep again, and just walked around the base a little bit to see what was going on, and went over to dinner with, that's when we went in to make the reservations, I guess, for Robin, because that office was open on Friday. And then we went over to dinner with our sponsors and had a lovely meal there, outdoor steaks and a barbecue kind of thing. And Robin was actually a lot more chipper after that, because I think getting out and seeing other people, and the woman there works in the Child Development Center and mentioned the possibility of a job there for Robin. That really kind of interested her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So things were a little bit better, but she was still signed up to go on Saturday, but she was starting to feel so much better that by Saturday she said, "Gee, I wish I weren't going until Sunday, and I could have strangled her then, because I really wanted her to spend the weekend with us. I would have really liked that." Because what we decided to do was I rented a car, and it actually turned out to be a Ford van, which accommodated quite a few people. And so it's a 9-passenger vehicle, so it was just actually, as it turns out, it was the 4 of us, so that we could do a little touring of the countryside. Well, meanwhile, we had to take Robin to the airport for 2 o'clock. So we set out a little bit later than we should have for the airport, and it's only about a 20-minute drive, they say, but we didn't know where we were going, of course. And I also was told by the rental people that the car was brand new and had just been brought in, but they didn't have a chance to put any petrol in it. So I needed to go get petrol, so that was going to consume some time with the language barrier and everything else, and not knowing how to operate the pumps here and little things like that. So we stopped at a gas station. I saw a young man there who seemed very friendly. He was pumping, and I asked him in my little bit of German, and he spoke English. If he could help show me how to use the pumps there, and also if he knew how to get to the airport. So he took care of us both counts, and he gave us directions to the airport, but we were still getting a little bit shy of time, so we took off and headed in the direction we thought he told us and so forth. Well, we were cruising along, and we find him coming up alongside the car and motioning us over, and here we were going the wrong way according to the way he thought we should go. Well, as it turns out, we're going back into the city, and he was suggesting going around basically, like in a sense, a beltway. So in any event, we were starting to get a little panicky then, and I asked him if he would consider showing us the way by driving. We'd follow him, because I'd already considered, in fact, trying to find a taxi to do just that. And I said I'd pay him, and he agreed to do that. So we raced for the airport, and on the way there, it was very evident that there was no way we were going to make it on time, because the flight left at 2:10, and it was about 1:30 or 1:40, and it seemed a bit distant that we had to drive going around the city. So we raced in any event using Autobahns, which are the faster roads. And as it turns out, we pulled up to the terminal about 8 minutes after 2. We'd already planned what we were going to do once we got there, that Nancy and Rob were going to hop out. Rob was going to carry her suitcase and so forth, but Nancy was going to race for the desk and ask if they might hold the flight. Well, as it turns out, it was British Airways, and the desk that she first encountered was all closed up. But somebody pointed out another British Airways desk, but they said that she'd never make it. But she persevered, and and as it turns out, I guess the flight was delayed by a few minutes. And long story short, of course, Robin did make it, but that's about as close as we've ever come with our last-minute takeoffs and so forth for trying to get places. So Robin did make the flight, and what would have really been bad if she hadn't, in addition to having to figure out how to reschedule that and see if we could get our money back and pay for the next ticket and all that, was that we'd already made arrangements for somebody to meet her in Manchester, and it was too late to contact them because Manchester is about an hour and a half from Harrogate, and so the people were already on their way there. So had she missed the flight, there would have been no way of reaching the people before they left for the airport. So it did work out nicely in the long run, but that was a pretty scary circumstance. So, having been very relieved, we all breathed a big sigh of relief that we made it, and now here we are with our nice rental car, and so we decided to take off to see the countryside. So we drove down through, I'm not sure, I think I may have sent a postcard to you from at that time. I can't remember if you got a postcard from there or not. Anyhow, we took off heading towards Innsbruck, which I'm not really sure now. I think maybe 100 miles from here, or I guess 160 kilometers, something like that. The way you convert kilometers to miles is you divide kilometers by 8. So if it's 160 kilometers, it would be 8 into 160 would be 20, and then multiply by 5 for 100. 5 times 20 would be 100. So I think it was about 160 kilometers, with about 100 miles for Innsbruck, and so we took off, and we cruised down the Autobahn. Well, it was already rather late in the afternoon, of course, but we stopped, we got off the Autobahn and drove through a back road, so it's a little more picturesque. We stopped at a little village for a bite to eat, and that was a delightful experience, and tried to speak German, and there was one chap there who spoke English, so he helped us out when we ran into problems, and managed to order a little lunch, and it was really quite nice. A couple beers, and took some pictures of us with the people there, and it was a beer garden, which is it's a beer garden. It's basically tables outside, outdoor cafe kind of thing with umbrellas, and it's really quite pleasant. And from there we then headed back onto the Autobahn and down towards Innsbruck, just to see the scenery. It was quite pretty, as we had remembered. And started the city of Innsbruck and headed back up towards the little village of Imst that has special meaning to us from the time that Mom and Papa were long over in 1968 and the car broke down. And so we stopped at the little village of Imst again and showed the kids the hotel where we had stayed. When Brian was just a few months old, we had stayed there. But we would have liked to have stayed again, but it was kind of expensive, and so we decided not to do that. It was pretty crowded, actually, because there was a concert that evening. That was still, again, the 4th of July. But it wasn't a celebration of our 4th of July. It just so happened there was a concert in town there. So it was a bit crowded. So we headed from there on up into Garmisch, back into Germany. And in Garmisch, Garmisch is one of the major armed forces recreation centers in Germany. It's a beautiful, beautiful German town. And so, of course, the Americans made it one of the Armed Forces Recreation Center highlights. And we had stayed there before in one of the hotels run for the Americans. But naturally, that night, they were all booked, all filled up. Didn't really matter again, because in this case, we're only less than an hour's drive back to Munich. But we stopped for dinner and pulled into McDonald's for the kids. And found that while they were ordering a sandwich, I found a parking spot on the side street. And we pulled up into the parking spot, and then I managed to get out and had a little nice restaurant right there. That I thought would be nice.
Stupid.
Well, it seems as though we have some distracting noises in the background, which I'm sure that I'm sure Papa and Aunt Barbara and Uncle Herb are going to recognize immediately as the bickering between our siblings here.
You're better.
So we're getting ready to sit down to dinner.
embarrassing me.
You're embarrassing me. We're sitting down to dinner. We're trying to. So anyhow, Nancy and I had a nice dinner there while the kids ate their McDonald's in the car and played with a couple of until we thought things were kind of peaceful because they were out of sight around the corner, but until we saw this ball coming down the street on the side. And
loping after. Wait.
So anyhow, that was really a nice evening. That was a nice little dinner we had there, and we ordered it in German and spoke to the waitress, I think, who was the Frau of the owner, Mr. and Mrs. kind of thing, and the owner he was very helpful to us, and they seemed to enjoy the fact that we were trying to speak German, and it was another one of those delightful experiences. So then we took off from there and decided we were going to try to make it back to Munich in time to see the fireworks. So we did just pull up in time to see a little bit of the fireworks as we drove into Munich about 10:15 that evening. So it was a nice little jaunt, and the next day we still had the rental car, which was for the weekend. It was a weekend break.
Ladies first all the time.
And we took off for
I get 2 pieces.
Starnberg. Is it Starnberg or Starnberger?
Starnberger's it.
Well, it's the town Starnberg. The town of Starnberg is at the head of a lake called Starnberger See, which is very large near us. If you were to look at the map, you could see that. And so we went down there and spent most of the afternoon.
Milk.
That was last Sunday, the 5th of July.
Nothing.
And as it turns out, the Germans are noted for, if it gets real warm, they'll
Can I have a 7-Up?
not bother with too many clothes.
Oh, we always have
And
They go topless, you know.
Nancy would rather explain it. Here you go.
They go topless and bottomless.
And there was one man who was bottomless as well, that she rather appreciated.
I don't think you did.
She admonished
Oh,
the
yeah.
children not to be too obvious about it, and not to
Well, she's
They're
there staring.
stare too much or point.
Right.
So they had a miniature golf course there, and the kids, and again the umbrellas out there by the miniature golf course. It was really quite delightful. The kids played golf while we were sitting right out in between some of the golf course spots and just having a sandwich and a drink. And we strolled along the lake then, and then hopped back in the car and drove up along the lake further and found a nice spot where there were a lot of people bathing or boating or whatever. We went out there and spread a blanket out on the grass. And that was quite a nice afternoon. And there was a little bit of a pier
I need the salt.
that Nancy and the kids went out on, and I dozed on the blanket. And so we were back then about 6 or 7 that evening, and then off to work all week.
The salt. What?
I can't remember. Brian just had a piece of potato that it was a
The
bit
salt.
warm.
What was it?
Hot potato?
What is it, Brian?
Is it a hot
What's
potato?
wrong with it?
I'll have to stop here. Okay, so we're back again, and now Rebecca would like to talk with you about what she thinks about Germany. Okay, Becca? What do you have to say?
I like it very much. It's fun. Today we went swimming, but it started raining. So we came back at 4:25.
What did we do before swimming?
Read.
What did we do this morning?
Oh yeah. This morning we went to church. I helped out in Sunday school.
What did it do? Were there other kids there besides Brian in Sunday school? How many?
Yes.
How many were
There
there?
were 8 kids.
There were? And you were a
Yes.
helper?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I knew you were a helper, but I didn't know how many kids there were. How old were they?
I don't know.
Oh!
Okay.
Yeah. They serve cookies. I think Brian wants to talk now.
Well, I already told you about how I like Germany, and we did go to church this morning, and we did go to the pool this afternoon after church.
What did we do yesterday?
We also went to the pool yesterday.
No, we didn't. Becca
I mean-
remembers.
Well,
What did we do
for
yesterday?
That day,
What did we do yesterday, Rebecca? What did we do yesterday, Rebecca?
Oh yeah, my
Oh
brother.
yeah, we went on a tour on a bus with these other people in downtown Munich.
I don't think they heard that when you were speaking into the water glass.
7-Up.
7-Up glass. Say it again.
We went
Got it.
down to town. We went down
Oh,
to town
shoot.
Munich.
What did we see there? That you
A
remember?
lot of churches.
Yeah.
3.
What else?
And we saw a big clock,
What's it called?
with the little people that move around at 11 o'clock.
It's the world famous Glockenspiel. The Marienplatz, where they have figures that move at 11 o'clock each day. So we were there. The tour guides made sure we were there in the square about 11:15. So we were able to see the Glockenspiel, world famous highlights of Munich. And from there we went to, as Becca says, we saw several churches, but we went to the Frauenkirche, which is a Church of Our Lady. And it's also very famous and built in medieval times, but pretty well destroyed during the Second World War. And several photographs of the damage during the war
Mom,
were displayed in the back of the church.
it's locked on me and I can't break it. I can't think
But the
of
tour was quite good, and then we had lunch at
Oh,
one
there
of
we
the
go.
The largest
largest
beer hall in the world.
largest beer hall in the world. And it wasn't a Hofbrauhaus.
Mm-hmm.
Not the largest one.
Yeah, they claim to be the largest, but I mentioned that to someone last night, and they said, what about the Hofbrauhaus? The Hofbrauhaus is supposedly the largest and most famous or whatever, but I think in terms of square footage or something like that. In any event, it doesn't really matter. They make that claim, but it was very nice. It was a lunch, and they had German musicians playing during the lunch periods, and again, it was quite a nice setting, so we thoroughly enjoyed that. And the experience of learning how to ride the
Trying to cut it with your
Strassenbahn, the streetcars, and the U-Bahn, which is the underground, or the Unterbahn.
Unterhosen.
And so we rode both of those yesterday, and getting to and from the city. And what about this week? What kinds of things about the housing, would you like to comment on, Nancy?
Fine, starts here.
Oh, yeah. What is that? Go ahead.
Well, I start camp this week on Monday.
Monday.
What kind of camp is it? Just a moment. What's the date? 13th. Monday the 13th. That's tomorrow.
I go on Monday the 13th of July, 1987.
What kind of camp is it?
Well, at first I thought it said YA, but it's a YA youth activity.
Right on base.
Right on base.
Rebecca's not going.
And Rebecca's not going.
She too old for that camp?
She thinks she is.
She thinks she's too old. And she's only 11 years old.
Ryan thinks he's too old.
And what about-
swimming today?
Yeah, we already talked about that while you were downstairs. Do you want to talk about housing? Talk about housing, Nancy?
Shut up.
Well, we'll take a little break here again.
I met some new friends. This is Smetak. And I saw while we were walking to the park, their names are Shannon, Katie, and Gwen.
Shannon, Katie, and who?
Gwen. And we saw the Three Amigos at the movie theater a few days ago. It was nice.
Thank you.
You've been to several movies. What else did you see?
And a few days later, I saw Mannequin for the second time. Third. And I saw
Peggy.
Peggy Sue got married. It's when this lady, she gets sent back in time, and they're separated, and she can change. She wants to change for a while, but then she doesn't change in the end.
Anything else?
She wants to change. She wants to change her what?
What school are you thinking about going to?
A German school.
But probably not, right?
Probably so.
You think so?
I decided today.
Did you?
Yeah.
Why do you want to go to German school?
So I can learn German. And be in the highest math class.
I'm not gonna
Well, I think
be
we
in
may
the
sign-
highest math class.
May sign you and Robin up for a language class after
I
the
know, but
evening.
I still want to go because my friends are going.
Oh.
Oh, so is my friend, but I'm not going.
What?
What?
Yes, we would. Why wouldn't
And I got some German money, and I traded with my dad today. And I got $1 for every single cent I had.
And have you guys had fun in the PX?
Yes!
Okay. Well, that was about as much as I think I can eke out of Rebecca. She's
Now let's listen to it.
she's the silent type. She likes to listen to other people talk.
Like one of the chocolate puddings.
She's not too talkative herself. So maybe a little bit later I can get her to say some more. So I'm running out of steam here a little bit myself, so I think I'll pause again. I'm going to turn the tape around now, even though it's not near the end, it's not quite at the end, so that Nancy has a considerable amount of tape on which to talk without having to do that when she reaches the end or forget about it. So The rest of this tape on this side will be blank, so turn the tape over now, please. I forgot one more thing. I will put it at the beginning of the other side, so she has plenty of tape. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over.